Welcome to the Focus Sessions, Africa's online safety TV show, broadcasting once per month on this frequency. Aviassist has been leading, building and supporting safety promotion in African aviation since 1995. And we provide you insights into the exciting world of safety and of its professionals. And it's my pleasure to welcome today to the studio Mashadi Ntenge. Mashadi, welcome.
Hi,
first of all.
Tom. Thanks so much.
Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, give us an insight. Who is Mashadi Ntenge?
Mashadi is a 34-year-old South African air traffic controller working in the Netherlands.
Okay.
I am a tower controller and I've been a controller for almost 12 years. I've only ever done air traffic control as a job, and I think it's the best job in the world.
And when you say I've only ever done air traffic control, does it also mean that you've only dreamt of being an air traffic controller from a child onwards?
No.
Okay.
I've wanted to be a marine biologist, thought about being a doctor, you know, the usual careers that we all explore.
Well, usual. I mean, most guys is a fire officer or something, but be a marine biologist is quite a
True. I was really crazy about dolphins and like marine life at some stage. So I've gone through the phases of different careers based on where I was in life. But I ended up in aviation. And even with that, I still wanted to be a pilot before I discovered air traffic control. There were more opportunities in air traffic control than there were for piloting in South Africa at the time. And that's how I ended up applying for the air traffic controller position. And I got the bursarship at ATNS in South Africa.
And what age were you when you got the bursarship?
I was 18.
18?
Yes.
Okay. But the fact what fascinates me as well is this marine biologist bit.
Yes.
Was that also because, I guess quite often we're all influenced by where we live and what we find around us? Did you grow up near to the sea or?
Not at all.
Oh, not at all?
Not at all. But my mom and I used to watch a lot of nature programs. She was crazy about all of that. So I also just kind of gravitated towards, especially the marine documentaries, the whales, the sharks, the dolphins, the urchins at the bottom of the sea. It was just so interesting. And I thought, if people have this as a job,
how could
be really, really nice, you know? But yeah, it just kind of faded away as I grew older and I got fascinated by other things. Yeah.
And quite a lot of the viewers usually of the focus sessions are graduates who just graduated from university, sometimes in aviation oriented degrees, sometimes not. But like you said, a lot of people dream of becoming a pilot and sometimes forget there's loads of other professions. So do you remember how you got in touch with air traffic control? What sparked you? I mean, you've said that you've moved away from piloting because it was difficult to get the opportunity, but still, how did you then get in touch with air traffic control?
Yeah, how it happened, how I discovered air traffic control, my math teacher in high school, grade 10, still said to me, do you know about air traffic control? Because you talk about piloting a lot, but I know guys who sit behind screens and calculate what pilots do.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, tell me more. And he still said, just Google it and see what you find. So I went onto the internet, checked everything out, found that there was only one company in the entire country that did it.
Yeah.
And I went to a convent school, which was a boarding school. So I was far away from home and our guardians were like the nuns at the school. I still sent an application to the airport with a post by mail, and I just let them know that I was interested. And I was still in grade 11, so a year and a half before I was done with high school. To which an air traffic controller from the airport in the Free State, Bloemfontein Airport, still responded, and she was like, they have a Take a Girl Child to Work Day function and they would like to invite me. So I gave the letter to the principal of the school and I got permission to be released for that day. And I went to the airport and there was this big function where people from different schools were there, and they were just trying to promote
Aviation,
the air traffic control
specifically
sector of it. And it was such a fun day because everyone who was there, most of the people who were there were just there to find out what it's about, but I already knew what it was about. I was like so charged up
on the internet.
Yes. So it was one of the greatest days for me, and from that day people recognized me. The people who worked at Bloemfontein, and when I sent in my application after high school, they recognized me from that event, and I got called in for psychometric tests.
And if I can just take you back to this, you said it was a math teacher who initially
Yes.
pointed. Are you still by chance in touch with that person?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all. Actually, I lost contact with him when I finished high school.
Because that's quite inspirational for somebody.
It is.
Yeah.
And also, at the time, you don't think like it could become something where now it's like my entire career. But at that time, I was like, oh, he's an adult. He's allowed to throw ideas out there so that we can explore.
But we all need those role models,
Yes,
I think,
yes,
isn't it?
definitely.
And at the same time, you mentioned before that it was a convent school, I think you said.
Yes.
Traditionally, I guess, air traffic control aviation is seen as a career for men, which is, of course, absolutely nonsense. But what did you find any... Well, not resistance, but where people said in the school from the convent, well, why would you go into that job? It's so male. It's a male job?
No, not actually. It was, I think I was one of the first people to do something like that. When nobody's allowed to go home unless your parents are picking you up.
Yeah.
And now I'm getting special treatment because the nun is driving me to the airport to go and explore my future.
So even that one special day was special for the school as well?
Yes, everyone knew that it was happening, and when I came back, everyone wanted to know how it went.
Yeah.
So it was really special for me, and it was the beginning of something special, even though in the time I didn't realize it to be.
How special it was.
You know what I mean? Yeah. If you look back in hindsight, you're like, actually, that's where it all began. Yeah.
And this was in the Bloemfontein area, you're saying?
Bloemfontein, yes.
Describe it for not all our viewers might be familiar. What part of South Africa are we talking
Bloemfontein is in the Free State, so just south, southwest of Johannesburg, of Gauteng, the province for Johannesburg.
Yeah.
And the Free State is the province, Bloemfontein being the capital of that province. The airport there is an international airport, but not busy with movements. They have a few scheduled flights, but not so much. But obviously at the time, you're just like, at the airport, driving around in the fire trucks. You see one aircraft, you're so happy.
Yeah, this is when you had this open day, you meant.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And the lady who worked there, she also allowed me to come on weekends if I get a weekend pass. And if the nuns agreed, they would drop me off on a Saturday if she's working a shift. And I'd sit there with her until she goes home, and then I'd be picked up again.
So it wasn't just that open day and then later on, a few years later, entering the career, but you then also, on a fairly regular basis, managed to get almost sneak in, I guess, to the tower.
Special
pass for Mashadi.
Yes. Yeah.
And again, like you said, far away from the sea, so this whole marine biology thing was by now a thing of the past, I guess. And so then you start. You started training as well in Bloemfontein, or once you got accepted?
I applied through Bloemfontein.
Yeah.
And then I was called for the psychometric tests, which I did also in Bloemfontein. That was a very confusing time because I got a call back that I didn't make it, that nobody in our group actually made it.
Okay.
So I was like, well, after all that excitement, I mean,
it felt deflated.
What am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
2 days later, I got a call, and they said we had to review our results, and we made a mistake. You were the only one in the group that made it.
That should have passed straight away.
So yeah, that's when I was like, yes, because my mom kept on saying, like, you can't just let this be your only plan. Like, have a plan B. Like, apply for the university maybe.
And so you were afraid if you didn't make it, your mom would say, this is why I told you, have a plan.
Exactly. So when they called back, I was relieved. And so it started. Then I left my township. We went to go live close to the academy.
Which is
Training
where was
wasn't-
the academy?
Kempton Park. So
That's close to Joburg, isn't it?
the academy is right between the parallel runways of Johannesburg.
Okay.
So that's where we do our training. It's inspiration all the time, because if you go outside for a walk or for
see
fresh air,
aircraft.
all you see is aircraft outside. Really inspirational. So yeah, that's how
The
we
initial
got here.
steps. Yeah, and I
Yes.
think what's also really nice, because when I started in aviation in Africa, very few airlines, airports, etc., organized open days for youngsters. Maybe it was different in South Africa, because of course South Africa has a huge aviation industry. But it's very nice to see that nowadays, organizations, companies like Rwandair, but also Kenya Airways, Kenya CEA, they organize those days. And it's nice to hear from you that it's, yes, for some kids it will just be a visit and they see the aircraft, but for some it might spark,
For some,
really
it's
spark
actually
a
the
career.
beginning of something.
Yeah. Even though sometimes you have to overcome reservations from parents who might say, well, how big are your chances? Have a plan B.
And I mean, nobody understands the fact that you go for training, which is like in-service training, if you think about it, because you do the training internally and then are hired by the same company. And people are used to you having to go to university for 4 years. And then, so when they start seeing you actually finish your training and that you actually now have a job shorter than everyone else who went to the university. Now you have a car. How is this all happening so fast? They don't understand the intensity of the training and how much we give. I mean, it's short, and because it's so short, it's intense. Just those spaces of time that you have to dedicate to getting to the level that is required is really intense.
But in your case, it was basically working and studying from day one, basically.
From day one.
Yeah. You were assisting, I presume, in an assistant controller position or something?
Yes.
Did that work?
We started with the initial training that everyone has to follow, the core content, ICAO theories, and after that we were sent out to the field as assistants for about a year. So you work and train as an assistant while you observe air traffic controllers and how it comes together. And then after that, you get a chance to go on a controller course. And usually in South Africa, everybody starts with tower and then approach and then area, whoever wants to continue. Or if you want to stay with tower, then that's also fine. So everyone would do a tower control course. And what I liked about South Africa is that then they send you to the not so busy airports, the Bloemfontein's of
to
the
get used
world.
to traffic, to
Ironically, I went to Bloemfontein after I passed my controller course. And from there, then you can kind of climb the ladder and build up on your experience as the airports get busier. So I started at Bloemfontein, worked Grand Central Airport, which was
That's in the Johannesburg area as well?
Johannesburg Midrand, under the TMA of Johannesburg. That was busy. A lot of training traffic, and then I ended up at Johannesburg.
And what I think is also very interesting, and I think in some respects South Africa is unique in that, which in a way is something we'd love to see change, I guess, is you were trained in a civilian air traffic control organization, isn't it? Because a lot of places in Africa, the air traffic controllers initially get trained in the military setting, which sometimes makes it difficult if they then move to the civilian side. And they have to get used to just culture where punishment is not taking place, but you try to learn as an organization. I hope it's not easy, but that more countries in Africa take that civilian training where they can, or set it up, or maybe work with ATNS in South Africa, so that we can also increasingly have the people that grow up in the civilian ranks instead of the sometimes very strict, because that's not always productive on just culture, if you like, on looking at issues with a system instead of just a human side. Now, I've mentioned this word culture. At the beginning you mentioned you started in South Africa, you're now based here in the Netherlands. That's quite a change in culture, I would think, both professionally and it's huge.
Huge change.
Why is it huge? What makes it huge?
Almost everything is different. Professionally, not so much, but personal life, it's a big culture shock when you arrive in I think any different country. I just thought that the Netherlands would be, like what you read in the books or on the internet. And when you really get to live here, you discover that
it's different again.
It's a huge change, yeah.
I was very fortunate to have a similar experience in that I moved to Zambia and I lived there for almost 6 years altogether, and I found the same thing. I'd actually studied African studies next to my law degree. So you arrive into Africa, in my case, thinking, like you said, I think I have a fair idea of what this place, how it works. And then you realize it's not completely different, but there's many aspects which are different. So in many ways I can relate to that, I think, very nice. How actually did you hear of the opportunity to come here?
So I came to the Netherlands on holiday. I used to travel a lot. I used to just take some leave for a week or 2 weeks and just go. So I ended up in Amsterdam.
Because of the nice weather here, obviously, or
not because of the weather. I was just fascinated by the cheese and the clogs and the windmills,
Yeah.
and the water everywhere and the country being below sea level, like how? So I thought, let's go see what it's about. And I came here by myself.
Okay. Way before this whole application process started.
Yes. Yeah. And it was over the summer and I had such a nice time, met really nice people, tried to figure the train system out. That was, challenging.
Challenge in itself, yeah.
You feel very proud once you've achieved something on the train, like, okay, I didn't go in the opposite direction. Great. So, it was really nice. And I started thinking, like,
what if?
What if?
Yeah.
Like, how would it be if I was actually on the train from work going home
in
and not
place.
as a tourist?
Yeah,
exactly.
Because it's always different if you work somewhere, isn't it, compared to just visiting.
Yeah.
So when did the job vacancy sort of reach you then? Was that years later?
I sent in an unsolicited application, like, hey, this is who I am, I'm interested, this is my experience.
So this was a letter to what, the CEO of Dutch Air Traffic Control?
To the recruitment. I found just literally on the website.
HR department or something?
Yes. And I just dropped an email.
That's great.
And the friendly lady responded saying, there's nothing right now, but we will keep your resume on file, and if something comes up, we will contact you. And obviously, you don't think that will happen. You're
She's just being polite and sends you a message.
Yeah, let's just keep moving. And then
have a plan B, like your mom said.
Still love my job in Johannesburg. So it wasn't like pressure to leave. Mm-hmm. I was just content. And like, if it happens, it happens. And then one Friday afternoon, there was an email that there's a Lelystad project happening. They're looking for experienced controllers specifically. Would I be interested?
And Lelystad, for the viewers who don't know, it's a regional airfield in the Netherlands.
Regional airfield in the Netherlands, north of Amsterdam, and they wanted to open it up to holiday flights and help relieve the pressure that is at Schiphol by moving some
traffic to Lelystad.
Yes, that was the plan at the time, and so I obviously was interested. Even though I was aware that the move from Johannesburg being an international airport where it's so busy with all those big aircraft, and now I'm going to go to a regional airport, but I was willing to make the move because of the other factors that were making me move, not just...
And the curiosity, living somewhere else.
Curiosity.
Mind your glass of water, by the way, because before you know it, you go over.
I am clumsy.
Well, I mean, we all are in some respects, especially when we're below cameras, etc. But so this move to the Netherlands, having read the books and having visited once, thinking you know the place, then you go through the process. Anything which stands out for you from the application process, which surprised you, or?
Just how friendly and relaxed the conversations were. Via email, there was none of that proper here and thou, therefore, and that kind of language. Everything was just really nice. I was speaking to Frank a lot. He was heading the project for Lelystad.
And Frank is the human factors instructor.
The human factors instructor, yes. And he was very chilled about everything. And it was so informal that it didn't even feel like...
You were part of a application process.
Exactly.
And just to set the record straight for the viewers, I mean, we're talking very nicely about the Dutch Air Traffic Control Organization. They don't pay the foundation for these nice stories. It comes straight from the heart of Mashadi. So you were in touch with Frank?
Yes, and I was invited for an interview, came in, and did my interview with Frank,
Yeah.
and then had a simulator session where I was tested on traffic handling.
To see if you could do the job, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was over 2 days. Flew back I was in between shifts. I kind of had
Not the ideal situation.
an off day and a night shift or something. So
Yeah.
I just flew in and flew out really quickly. And then it was the waiting game. And then eventually I got the news that I was selected and all the information for start dates and all of that. And then it was real.
And I remember also from one of your colleagues we had in a focus session as well, Marvin Rangarira. He also spoke about the role of a psychologist in the whole application process, which we don't see very often, at least in the practice we've seen in Africa. South Africa, again, is a different ballgame because you have a huge industry and a leading service provider. But was that part of your selection process as well?
Yes. I was also interviewed by a psychologist. So there were 2 interviews, one mainly about the job.
Yeah.
And the other one, the psychologist, more about who you are and what brings you to the Netherlands and your experience level. How do you handle certain situations? Where are you emotionally? And how does your mentality
fit
in with the team or what they're looking for? I found that to be very interesting as well, actually.
The process of finding out, in a way, what makes
Yes.
Mashadi tick, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Were there any things which you discovered about yourself which maybe you didn't even know before? Or if you don't mind me asking, I mean.
No, not really. It was more, I think coming here, I was already so self-aware of who I was. So it wasn't even a challenging conversation because really it's just you telling her who you are. And based on who you are,
they will
decide.
have to make a decision.
Exactly, yeah.
Fascinating. Well, I think it's also nice for those younger viewers out there, indeed, to who think of writing a letter like you did initially. Just to an air traffic controller. Of course, you were a qualified air traffic controller by then.
Yes.
But where maybe their mums and dads, like my parents, perhaps would say, well, that's never going to happen. It's clear that it's not worth giving up on that dream, isn't it?
It can happen.
Yeah, it can happen.
Yes.
So here you are. Yeah. You find yourselves now in the land of those clocks and the windmills and the canals that you saw in the brochure and that you saw during your holiday.
Yes.
What is it like, personally and professionally, to be
Not
here?
as warm as it was when I came on holiday, obviously.
Okay. Which is a bit of a downside in the Netherlands, indeed.
I miss the African sun so much. It's one of the biggest changes that I'm still struggling to deal with because it actually affects your mood and just how you do things, how you go about life. If you wake up and the sun's out, you tackle the day different than when it's grey and rainy and wet outside.
What does it say about us living here?
Yeah,
I don't know.
and then we have vitamin D deficiencies and all of that stuff that affects you as well. So there's more to be aware of when you're in the Netherlands coming from Africa because you have to take supplements now and, stay active, to stay positive. Exercising really helps also clear the mind.
And is there anything in particular that you found that works for you, for example, to maybe compensate for that lack of sunshine? I mean, yes, there's the vitamins, but I mean, is there something else that you've taken to?
What I love about the Netherlands when it comes to this particular topic is that there's nature everywhere. It's in your backyard. It's not like Johannesburg where it's just a city and you can drive for half an hour and still be in the same city.
Yeah.
Here you can take a walk and find yourself in a forest or just in the middle of nowhere. And that is in itself is like so refreshing.
So where would you go? What's your favorite spot in the Netherlands?
When I was in Maastricht, I liked the Bildentuin. It's a forest garden kind of setup with a lot of statues, and you can either go riding your bicycle or taking a walk or a hike. And it's got a few, I mean, we know it's flat in the Netherlands, but
that part
hills
at least has a few.
And a few, we won't say mountains, but...
Because for the viewers, Maastricht is in the southern part of the Netherlands, basically wedged into Belgium.
Exactly, in that little corner,
yeah.
Which is also nice because then you are surrounded by people who aren't just Dutch, because it's at the border. A lot of
Yeah.
German
Mixes
people, a
in
lot of
Belgium.
Belgian people are there. That was a nice mix as well.
But hang on, I'm a little bit confused because you say you apply for this job at Lelystad Airport, which is
Yes.
north of Amsterdam. How come you ended up in the south?
Yeah. Life has been interesting since I came to the Netherlands.
Okay.
But after I completed my training for Lelystad,
Yes.
we found out that there was no working relation between South Africa and the Netherlands.
Okay.
And this was after we had to apply for a security clearance, which grants you to control live traffic basically on a frequency.
So if you
for
want to work on a
safety.
live traffic frequency in the Netherlands, probably in other countries as well,
Yeah.
you need that security clearance.
Yes, which is like basically a background check on what kind of person you are. Like, are you a risk to the country or not? And I completely understand why they would want to do a check like that, given the type of job we do.
Yeah, yeah.
But unfortunately for us, by us I mean my other two colleagues who are South African as well, we didn't get a security clearance because of bureaucracy, so issues between the two countries.
Two governments, the security agencies. Yeah.
Exactly, and we ended up having to wait until the procedures were rewritten or reviewed. I'm not sure if they had to rewrite new procedures, but that took about 2.5 years. In that time, I was an instructor.
Because you couldn't work as an
Because
active
I
controller?
couldn't work operationally, and they still wanted to keep me for my ATM knowledge, basically, and so I stayed as an instructor.
Handing over knowledge, transferring knowledge, which, I don't know, did you enjoy that? Because it normally...
I did enjoy it. I
Yeah.
learned a lot because I hadn't really taken it seriously before. I was in South Africa just a air traffic controller that goes home, goes back to work, plugs in, enjoy your day, and then go home, you know, not really consider, you know, the learning process behind other people, different backgrounds,
And they say he who teaches learns, or in your case, she who teaches learns. but,
you actually learn a lot. So that kind of took me in a different direction, learning from scratch how to be a more flexible instructor, not the kind of instructor I've known since I started as a student. You know, you have to kind of roll with the punches. You'll get the difficult student, but you'll also get the very timid, not so confident student. And
who you have to try and help forward with their career.
you have to kind of figure out how to make the changes between the different students. And I found that very interesting.
And you spoke about Maastricht and the training, I think, in the past tense.
Yes.
So I presume that means by now those clearance issues have been solved?
Yes.
And that means you're now back in the north then?
Yes.
Okay. Is that a moment to celebrate for you?
Thankfully, yes.
Okay, it is. Okay.
2 years is a very long time
Yeah.
to wait.
Especially because of that disappointment that you came here to control, of
yes,
course. Yeah.
Yes, I've gone through a few dark times because of that. It's just, you know, when you've done something all your life and then it just halts because you can't anymore, it takes a lot from you, just the energy to keep going when you know that that's not really why you came here. So I embraced every step of it. I loved being an instructor in Maastricht. I was helping on the project, which was nice because it was international people that were brought in.
What's the project?
The project is Heading 021, and they recruited more experienced controllers from outside of the Netherlands to come and help with the staff shortages at the regional airports.
So you were helping other people like yourselves who came in from abroad?
Basically, yes.
To settle and to find their footing. I think it's very interesting how you mentioned this. You know, I think that one of the silver linings, if you like, of the dark cloud of Corona is, at least as we see it at Aviassist, you know, that we are more open to talk about the mental side of things and making sure we're all not just physically healthy, but also mentally healthy. And you spoke about, you know, the statue park where you went to sort of find a bit more peace in difficult times. So that's really helped you to also be aware of that.
It actually makes a difference. You know, I don't mean to talk bad about where I come from, but where I come from, we don't really talk about these things, or you don't really just openly say, like, you know what, I'm not mentally coping right now. I'm
not happy in the place.
Because you look weak or you feel like people are judging you or whatever. But I've had to take those steps to acknowledge what I'm feeling, and it actually brings a lot of change, because then you stop feeling like you have to put pressure on yourself to be a superhero or whatever. Then you accept that you're human and that you are allowed to go through those emotions as well.
And I can imagine, I mean, we haven't known each other for 25 years, obviously, but I mean, if I just go back to the earlier part of this conversation, you know, the extra challenge for you might have been that, you know, you were very self-confident, I'm going to apply, do this. So you probably felt in charge of everything. And then all of a sudden, there's something outside your control which you have to learn with. So,
your whole ego takes a knock.
Yeah.
You still question, like, do I still have it? Am I still that girl? But you kind of just have to...
Who's that girl?
Yeah. Remember who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, well, in many ways, I think, you know, this very humbling experience, I would think, you know, for me as an outsider anyway, to hear how you've, you know, gone through this challenging period, you know, coming from being very self-confident, I'm going to the Netherlands or I'm going abroad anyway, and then meeting these obstacles. Now, you mentioned in the beginning this math teacher, you know, who inspired you and said, hey, have you thought of the career of... Yeah. I mean, so you've seen firsthand how inspirational one person could possibly be. If you try to dig in your mind, you know, who is currently a source of inspiration for you? Is there an author, a writer, who you think, wow, that's somebody I really feel provides me energy, or perhaps a suggestion for somebody in Africa?
Right now I'm inspired by the poet Rupi Kaur.
Okay.
She's female from India and she is a feminist. Most of her poems are about women lifting each other up, or that woman validation that we still don't have in our daily lives because, you know, we still have patriarchal issues that still need to be ironed out.
Yeah.
So hearing other women think like you or say words that resonate with you is very interesting. And I know a lot of females in the world like her because she says the things that you are too scared to say with your own mouth. So she's my inspiration in private life right now. And
we'll make sure we put the link to that book, you know, below the video.
Yes.
I think it's really nice for, like I said, quite often a third of our viewers are people that have just graduated, just gone into life. They can take a leave from you, I think, you know, and just going out there and pursuing your dreams. You know, if my dream is to go to the Netherlands, everybody will say it's impossible, you know, we're from South Africa, it's not going to work. You made it work. But at the same time, indeed, to have Rupi Kaur, you know, to take you through perhaps more challenging times when things don't work out the way, you know, the braverous Mashadi was marching into the Netherlands.
Oh yes, I have actually learned a lot through this challenging time. I think I've learned the most.
Now you're here with us in the Netherlands. You know, you live in the Netherlands. You've now gone back to. Are you back in active controlling at the moment?
I started last week on the simulator. For my situation, I was already complete with the training. I had the license. It was literally at the last minute. So I don't need to do the entire training from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's more of a refresher, reactivating your license. And it might go quicker than a full opleiding traject, training trajectory.
Dutch word slipping there. Kind of integration.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to just get my stability back, you know, just to feel like myself again. A
bit more in the comfort zone where you thought you were when you initially came out here, indeed.
Yes.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. I mean, and then if you try to look ahead carefully, any idea where Mashadi's next letter is going to go, or?
There might be a letter, but I don't know where yet. You know, right now I just want to build myself back up to where I was initially, because that was a really nice place to be. I could even be further after I build myself up based on everything else that I learned if I add it in there. And from there we'll see, maybe into management, maybe another country, who knows.
Well, thank you very much for your time
today,
Mashadi. I've really enjoyed our talk here in the focus session. It's great. I think it's a real inspiration for the viewers out there. And I never make false compliments in life. I've made that a pledge, so I don't say
I'll
this
take that seriously.
just to be nice to Mashadi. But yeah, it's so easy to always pretend, particularly perhaps in aviation, that no, we're on top of things. Nothing is going to happen. I think a lot of us have become more humble because of Corona, because we were all shaken off our footing basically. Yeah. The same for me, the same for Aviassist. So thank you very much for your time here in the studio, and I'm sure we'll not have seen the last of you at Aviassist.
I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not, indeed. And thank you also to the viewers out there. Thank you for tuning in to Safety Promotion. And if you enjoyed today's focus session, my conversation with Mashadi, then please be our ambassadors and tell your friends about the work of Aviassist. If you want to support our work, become a friend of Aviassist, you can do that on our web shop, www.aviassist.org/shop. And you can pay in many ways, including mobile money, which is very popular nowadays in Africa. And I can assure you your support will go a long way. We work really hard to make sure that we don't spend too much money on overhead. An example is we have parties like Rwandair providing us with their transport, which means lower cost. We have no offices, people all work from their home environment. So your $50 will really go a long way. We'd also love to welcome you to our first Aviassist Safety Promotion Center, the ASPC Rwanda. Join us there. Come and work towards your certificate in one of our unique courses at the University of Rwanda. And please don't forget, only you can target safety. Join us for the next focus session as we continue our mission with you to improve African aviation safety. For now, baie dankie, murabeo, and have a good day.